Hey, I'm Timmy Ruhnke, the next generation pastor here at Venture, and thanks for sticking with us so far on the road to Easter. And I'm going to dive right in because we have a lot to cover. And so here's where we are. It's Thursday, and yesterday's rest leads to chaos today. It's the most jam-packed day in the week leading up to Easter. In one of the most astonishing scenes in Scripture, Jesus spends time praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. And I know what you're thinking, what's so crazy about that? But this prayer is unlike anything we've seen from Jesus. It's in this prayer that we finally see raw emotion that Jesus feels with the reality of the cross hanging over him. And Jesus cries out to God the Father and fully grasping all that lay ahead of him, humbly concludes his prayer with a bold statement, God, let your will be done, not mine. Then Judas appears and seals his plan with a kiss as Jesus is arrested. Jesus knew the cross was coming the entire time, but now it becomes real to his followers. But before the anguish of the garden, there is peace in the upper room. Earlier Thursday night, in keeping with Jewish tradition, Jesus shares the Passover meal with his disciples. They borrow a room that had already been prepared beforehand for a special occasion like this. And like many other nights before, the 12 disciples and Jesus sit around a table enjoying food and each other's company. And the meal itself is a reminder of God's goodness and his faithfulness to provide for his people. But Jesus knows that this meal carries a lot more weight. This will be their last supper together. Jesus isn't just sharing food with his friends, he's sharing his last free moments on earth. And on this Thursday, Jesus has some of the most important, meaningful, and memorable moments with his disciples. His actions that night continue to shape the path for believers in Jesus. And we got to partake in the Lord's Supper last night at House Church, and it was so special. But one teaching in particular stands out from everything else that happens that day. John tells us in chapter 13 of his gospel that Jesus, the King of Kings, takes the role of a servant that night. He ties a towel around his waist, he bends down in front of his friends and washes the dust-covered feet of his disciples, even the one who would betray him just a few hours later. He uses that example to give his followers a simple but profound command. Just as I've loved you, you also are to love one another. So my challenge to you today is this. Who has God placed in your life to love and serve? Start today by praying specifically for them and for God's work in their lives. And look for ways to serve them as you reflect on God's love for you. And I can't wait to see what God does as you adopt that mindset today. And we'll pick back up tomorrow on the road to Easter.